Welcome to the True Man Podcast. This is an invitation to radical reconstruction of a man's masculine heart and soul in a place of safe community where we dare to ask questions deep seated inside a man and explore ways to help you become a better man, a better son, a better dad, and a better spouse. We want you to be great, man. Well, welcome back to the True Man Podcast. I don't know about you, but this is one of my favorite times of the year. Spring is upon us. We got basketball on, the Masters is here, golf season upon us, and it's Easter. Easter. Certainly, I think one of the most important holidays on the calendar, right? It's the resurrection of Christ. It's probably the most important thing outside of Christ's birth that we celebrate throughout the year. Such an important time in our lives. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today. I want to bring it in a little bit and personalize it. I'm going to do a little bit of that over the next few weeks because, the winds of change are upon me. And so, I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what happens when we go through periods of uncertainty and change in our lives. Well, let's just jump right in here. Well, let me start with this. If you want to learn more about the True Man podcast, you want to learn more about me, head on out to my website, truemanlifecoaching.com. You'll be able to, the podcast is there, my books are there. You can learn more about the speaking that I'm doing a lot of talking around the power of asking for help. Men, we do a horrible job. Everybody does really of asking for help. And we need to do better with that. And that's one of the topics that I really like to dig into and touch. And again, you've heard me talk about this over the last few weeks, really putting the finishing touches on the True Man Summit that will be coming up here shortly. Been working on a new website for that. I think you're going to like it. And I can't wait to talk more about that and really roll that out. But for today, let's talk about the week we're in here. The resurrection of Christ and what that means for us. There are moments in a man's life where everything feels steady, clear, and in control. And we all love that while that's going on. And then there are moments where it feels like everything is shifting underneath your feet. Right now, I'm in one of those moments. I'm selling a house. I'm preparing to move. I'm stepping into the unknown. No clear picture, not in the way that we really want it, right? That certainty. We want everything to be lined up, all the ducks in a row. But not exactly sure how everything will unfold. I feel good about it, but you just never know, right? And if I'm honest, this is the middle of a test. It is a story that will be told over and over again. But right now it feels like a real test. Not of strength, not of intelligence, not of strategy, but trust. And I brought this up to a lot of people, and I got to tell you, for some, it's really made them scratch their head. But let's talk about this as it relates to Easter, not just in a historical standpoint, but let's talk about patterns here. How about that? Most men hear Easter and they think about one thing, as they should, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And that's the right thing to be focused on. That's the foundation of our existence, really, as Christians. But what many men miss is this: Easter is not just an event, it's a pattern that you'll live out again and again in your life. Let's take a look at it. What do I mean? Well, there's Friday, right? Where things break, bleed, and don't make a lot of sense during the Easter season. There's Saturday where God feels silent and you're left waiting. And then there's a Sunday where a resurrection comes, often in ways you didn't expect. Now, most men want Sunday, don't we? But very few are willing to walk through Friday and even endure Saturday. Think about this. So let's talk about Saturday because that's where most men are, not in crisis, not in victory, but in the middle, waiting, uncertain, wondering, what is God doing? What is he up to in my life? That's exactly where I've been in this season. You know, we've made the decision to sell our home, and on paper, it makes sense. It's aligned, it feels right, but that doesn't remove the tension. I wish it would, but it doesn't. Because once you step out, you don't control what happens next. You don't control the timing, the offers, the next place, the details. And what that does is expose something. It exposes whether your faith is real or if this whole thing is just convenient. I've really been feeling that. And you know, here's the truth I think that most men don't want to admit. We say we trust God, but we really trust control. We really trust certainty. We trust our plan. We trust our timeline. We trust our ability to figure it all out. And as long as life stays within those boundaries, we feel strong, don't we? Secure. But the moment that those boundaries break, now we find out what we really believe. That's what this season has done for me. It has really stripped away this illusion of control, this illusion of certainty. And as I've talked with people about this, I've come to realize everyone wants that certainty and control. And to talk about what my wife Jill and I are doing it just makes people wonder, how could they do that? How could Jill move without a job? How could they just pick up and move from Georgia to Arkansas? And but you know what this has forced me to answer? Really one question. Mike, do you actually trust God, or you just trust yourself when things are going well? You know, I remember a night recently where everything was quiet, except my mind. My mind wasn't quiet. I had a little challenge with that lately, running through scenarios, outcomes, and what ifs. Have you ever experienced that? Did we make the right decision? What if it doesn't work out? What if timing doesn't line up? You know that voice, don't you? Every man does. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could stay in my head or I could go to God. Not with some kind of polished words or some great prayer. Not the perfect prayer, just keeping it real. And I said, God, I don't see it. I don't understand all of it, but I'm choosing to trust you anyway. And I've had to do this a few times, and every time I do this, something shifts. Not externally, internally. Internally. And this is where trust is built. Trust is not built when everything makes sense. Trust is really built when it doesn't. Let me say that again. Trust is not built when everything makes sense. Trust is built when it doesn't. That's the space between Friday and Sunday that we're in over Easter. That's Saturday. And most men try to escape it. They rush decisions, they force outcomes, and they grab control back because waiting just feels like a weakness. It's not a great feeling. It's just not. But waiting is where God does his deepest work. That's been my experience. Think about the disciples. We read the story knowing how it ends. They didn't. To them, Jesus was gone. The mission looked finished. Everything that they believe in looked like it had failed. And then came Saturday. Silence, confusion, no clear direction, no clarity. Just hanging out waiting. And here's what's powerful. God was actually doing his greatest work when it looked like nothing was happening. And that's what he's doing in you. You may feel like nothing is happening in your life right now, but that doesn't mean God is inactive. In fact, it means he's working in ways you can't see yet. In your character, in your patience, in your dependence. Because God is far more interested in who you're becoming than what you're controlling. And you should be also. Now, here's the lie of, I need to figure it all out. Men carry this weight. Got to figure it all out. Got to provide the answers, make the right calls, have the plan. And listen, that responsibility matters, okay? But here's where it gets a little twisted. When responsibility turns into self-reliance without God, that's where anxiety grows, right? If you felt that, that's where the pressure builds. That's where the fear starts to creep in. And then things get crazy because now everything rests on you. And you were never built to carry that alone. And Easter really is the ultimate reminder of all this. It reminds you of something powerful. You're not the Savior. You're not the one holding everything together. You are not the source. God is. And when you forget that, you're going to start carrying weight you were never meant to carry. Now, understand this. Letting go doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your part and trusting God with what you can't control. That's real strength, not forcing outcomes, not manipulating situations, but really standing firm while surrendering fully. That's what I've had to lean into this season. Do what I can do. Prepare. Take action. Be responsible. But release the rest. Is that easy? Heck no. Have I had my moments? You bet. Did it look pretty? No way. I'm a human being. But what does trust actually look like when we submit? So let's make this real a little bit. Trust is not a feeling. Trust is a decision. A decision that you make over and over again, even when you don't see the full picture. You don't have all the answers. You feel the tension. Trust sounds like this. God, I don't understand it, but I believe you're working. God, I don't see the outcome, but I know you're faithful. God, this is uncomfortable, but I'm not stepping outside of your will just to feel safe. Men, that's trust. And what you need to know and understand is your Saturday has purpose. If you're in a season right now where things feel uncertain, where you're waiting, where clarity isn't there, you're stuck, you're being shaped because your your Saturday has purpose. And here's what you need to understand. Resurrection always comes, but it rarely comes the way you expect it, right? No one expected the resurrection to happen the way it did. Not like that, not then, not in that form. And that's how God works, isn't it? He doesn't just meet your expectations, well, He exceeds them, but often in ways you would have never chosen. I look back over the calendar over the last 6 months, and if you'd have told me 6 months ago we'd be having this conversation right now, I would have told you you're nuts. But my deep seated belief is that this is happening for a very great reason that I don't completely understand right now. And I will tell you, I'm really looking forward to walking through that door. So let me ask you, where are you pretending that you don't need help in your life? Where are you being challenged? Let me challenge you, as a matter of fact. Where in your life are you pretending that you don't need help? Where are you carrying something alone that God is asking you to bring to Him? Because here's the truth, the man who refuses help stays stuck, and the man who asks grows. And don't you want to know what's on the other side of the ask? And that applies to your relationship to God too. So here's your call to action this Easter. You know, this Easter isn't about tradition. It's about transformation. It's about stepping into a deeper level of truth, not surface level faith, but real, tested, proven trust. The kind that holds even when life feels unstable. And it feels like that a lot of the time. Here's my commitment in this season. I made a decision not to rush it, not to force it, not to panic, but to trust, to stay grounded, to stay connected to God, to lead well, even in uncertainty, because this isn't just about selling a house and moving. It's about becoming the man that God is calling me to be. So here's your move. Simple, direct, no fluff. Identify your Saturday. Where in your life are you waiting right now? Stop trying to control what you can't. Just be honest. Where are you forcing outcomes? Bring it to God daily, not once, daily. Take the next right step, not 10 steps, one step. And trust that God is working even when you don't see it. Here's my final thought for today. Easter proves something. What looks like the end is often the beginning. What feels like a loss can become life. And what feels uncertain is where trust is built. So if you're in that place right now, good. Stay there. Lean in. Trust deeper. Because you know what? Sunday's coming. And that's a good thing. No, that's a great thing for all of us. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the True Man Podcast, a little Easter conversation here, and I hope it caused you to think a little bit. You know, how are you trusting God? If you'd like to talk more about it, just reach out to me, Mike at truemanlifecoaching.com. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please, by all means, leave me a great review on your favorite podcast channel. Love to hear from you all. And, you know, think about your Saturday this Easter season. Think about how you're preparing. Think about how you're trusting. Think about your love for Christ and his dedication. Man that walked the face of the earth, all so he could die to save your sins. Well, as we end today, let me just say, he is risen. He has risen indeed. God bless you. Go out and make this your very best Easter ever. God bless you. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next week.